Welcome, everybody. My name is Sean Conway. I'm the city attorney. Tonight, we are at the May 21st, 2018 CDC meeting. We have a matter scheduled tonight for public hearing. As you know, we are still in need of a permanent chair for the CDC. So for tonight, we'll do a motion to appoint a temporary chair pro tem. So if I could have a motion for a member to temporarily appoint member Rick St. Marie as chairman pro tem. It's on. So we need a motion to appoint member Rick St. Marie as chairman pro tem.
I'll make that motion.
And roll call, please.
Mr. Damasco?
Here.
Mr. Peterson?
Here.
Mr. Shemanek? Mr. St. Marie?
Here.
Mr. Vant?
Here.
And Mr. Woods?
Yes.
Mr. Carriage is absent.
And so we have a motion on the floor that's been seconded. Can I have a roll call on the vote to appoint Rick St. Marie as chairman pro tem? Roll call, please.
Mr. Damasco?
For.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Shemanek?
Yes.
Mr. St. Marie?
Yes.
Mr. Vant?
Yes.
And Mr. Woods?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. St. Marie is our chairman pro tem for the night. And so I cede the floor to Chairman St. Marie.
Thank you. I declare a quorum present. So with that, we can entertain a motion to approve the minutes of April 18th, 2018.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Who seconded? I'm sorry. Thank you.
So we have the second?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Roll call. Mr. Damasco?
Sure.
Mr. Peterson? Mr. Shemanek? Mr. St. Marie?
Yes.
Mr. Vant? And
Yes.
Mr. Woods?
Yes.
Okay, and for the members who voted here, we just need to record your vote as a yes or a no. And so I think that was member Peterson and member Damasco. Yes or no on that vote?
Yes.
Okay, so then that being a motion, we've done that, right? So then we can, all opposed, do we have to say that? Yeah, all opposed, well, we've already done that, we're good, right? Okay, so we can move on? Okay, so then we're ready here for our refractory remarks. We have one public hearing scheduled tonight. All testimony will be given under oath at the hearing. There will be the opportunity to have public to have offer testimony to the and to comment. Following the public hearing, there'll be deliberations that will be open to the public, and it'll be sense that all in the sense that all will be invited to listen and to watch. The public, however, may not speak during the deliberations. Statute requires that votes may be majority of the members of the committee, development commission, and those matters will be referred to the city council and oppose those that are matters and oppose those that are mattered with the community. Development Commission will make the final decision. With the proposed general description of the proposal by the assessment, we ask that the applicants that tonight that will be given specific evidence for the, and the demonstrative of the proper meets the standard of the, the standards of the approval for the request. The burden is on the applicants to prove the case. With respect to all those that wish to speak, you may be given an opportunity to present specific evidence to those that they believe that they have the applicant's meets for fails to or doesn't fail or fails to meet the standards of the request. Finally, we will strictly adhere to the schedule prepared for the tonight meeting. In this case, one of the applicant, one of the events you will you are attorney will have file a will file appearance. Oh, sorry, appearance as the objector. You will be afforded you'll be supported sufficient time, which will be present and will present for evidence. Okay. I will now call the matter for this evening. Public hearing, case number 2018-CDC-03 is in regard to the proposed text amendment to the sign code and the Unified Development Accordance Chapter 13 and 17 specifically, if the municipal code, with the municipal code. The proposal text, our amendment include removing fees, fines, securities, and other charges in chapters 13 and 17 and referencing the proposed master fee schedule, clarifying the general provisions in chapter 17A, A1 added, and the amendment definitions in section 17-103 and coordinated defined terms throughout chapter 17, clarifies decisions making, administration and enforcement responsibilities in chapter 17, article 2, revised section 17-401-C is in regards to the zoning certificate. Certificate, relegations, revised section -17-402 in regards to the site plan review regulations. Amend the table to permits used including which zonings district, parking, garages, commercial are permitted in the defined terms and uses in C-17-505, clarify the revised section 17-602 and regards to the accessory structures structures regulations and clarifies C-17-605 to read to develop development standards. Will the city please now note that the same commission are present. Same commissioners are present. I declare that there is a quorum. Staff, please provide a summary of the request of that indicates what notice of the hearing has been published, and will you have the certificate of the publication from the newspaper?
Would you raise your hand, state your name and address, please?
Mo Khan, 404 North Wooddale Road, Wooddale, Illinois.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Thank you, Mr. St. Marie. As Mr. St. Marie stated, we have proposed text amendments to both sign code and the Unified Development Ordinance, or UDO, Chapter 13 and 17, respectively, of the municipal code. The public hearing notice was published on May 3rd, 2018, in the Daily Herald, and a certificate of publication is on file for view. I'm just going to review, go through all the proposed text amendments and just give you an overview. They're all, the red line versions are included in the staff memo as exhibits A through H. The first text amendment is regarding the proposed master fee schedule. The City Council has tentatively approved a master fee schedule, which is going to withdraw all the specific fees, fines, and other charges, securities, which are mentioned throughout the municipal code, and put it in this master fee schedule. So this text amendment is removing those specific fees, regarding like permit fees, inspection fees, any securities, any fines for doing work without permits or installing a sign, removing that from Chapter 13 and 17, and putting and referencing the proposed master fee schedule where it fits. Exhibit A is the red line version of where those specific fines, fees, and amounts are being withdrawn, and referencing that proposed master fee schedule. The second proposed text amendment is to remove in its entirety a section called Organizations of this chapter from section 17.101D, General Provisions. What this section is just briefly highlighting what each of the articles in Chapter 17 is, and it's just redundant because each of the articles already has a purpose or statement in the beginning of each article, so this is just redundant. It's actually missing two of the articles at the end, 8 and 9, so we're just removing it because it's not needed at all. We are also proposing multiple changes to definitions. We're adding, amending, and eliminating definitions. Many definitions are being removed from Chapter 17 because they're not used within the UDO. So we don't see any need to have a definition if we don't use that term or terminology throughout the Chapter 17. It's just unnecessary. We're revising definitions to use common terminology and refer to other chapters of this code to avoid duplication. A lot of times we've noticed that there's some terms using very technical terminology, so for the regular resident or business owner to read the definitions, it may be hard for them to understand, so we kind of use some more common terminology so anybody can open up that section and understand the definitions. There's also duplicate definitions throughout the code and within the chapter, so we're eliminating those duplications and referring to other chapters where needed, such as Chapter 4, which is the commercial occupancy and business license regulations, or Chapter 6 regarding public trees. We're also adding definitions for uses, structures, and terms that are used in Chapter 17 and currently not defined. We have many uses for business uses that are not defined and are not common terms, so we're adding definitions for those terms and terminology. So if somebody were confused as to what a use is, then we have definition to give them an answer to that question. And again, other terms that may not be common terms that everybody uses in everyday, spoken language, so we're adding definitions to those to avoid confusion. The third text amendment is regarding Chapter 17, Article 2, decision-making. The first text amendment is to clarify the city engineer is responsible for reviewing the requirements of the stormwater and floodplain management in Article 8. And right now, it doesn't clearly state that. It just says they have to review compliance with the DuPage stormwater ordinance. The city of Wooddale has its own, so just clarify that in the code as a responsibility of the city engineer. The second proposed amendment is to eliminate the inconsistency between who's actually responsible for making a decision on an appeal made by the development, or a decision made by the development administrator and appeal of that decision. That is actually lies with the CDC, and this section actually also has it with the city council, so we're eliminating it from the city council to be consistent with the rest of the code. Next set of text amendments is to the zoning certificate. In section 17.401C, the specific deadlines as to when a decision has to be made on a zoning certificate. We're removing those deadlines because they're not always be able to stick to those deadlines. And also, the zoning certificate is often tied in with the building permit review application, which has its own deadlines. So we're removing those deadlines to be consistent, and also to take into consideration sometimes additional review time is needed based on the scope of the project. And that always can't just be done in 7 business days or 14 business days, depending on how large of the project is. We're also adding that applications shall be denied due to existing violations. This is the current interpretation of community development staff to not allow for additional work or additional projects to occur on a property if they have an existing violation. So it just codifies that interpretation to not allow for additional work until the existing violations are remedied and taken care of. The final amendment to this section is remove provisions regarding issuance of occupancy certificate and refer to Chapter 12, which is the building code. Occupancy certificates are generally held under the building code because it's basically saying that the building is safe to occupy, that it meets all the requirements for plumbing, electrical, structural, and it's not necessarily a zoning code requirement. So we're removing provisions and referring to Chapter 12 where it makes more sense and is consistent with the rest of the code. Amendments are being made to section 17.402, which is the site plan review requirements. We're clarifying when a major and minor site plan review is required. In the last batch of text amendments that was recommended approval by the CDC and approved by the City Council was to create a non-conforming exception when a homeowner or business owner wants to expand a structure or use that is non-conforming. So now we will require a minor site plan review to make sure that they meet the requirements of Chapter 17. We're also going to revise the standards of approval for a site plan review to be consistent with the other approval standards that the City Council makes a decision on, such as a variation, special use, a PUD, and other zoning relief requests. We're also going to add a requirement for submission of a transportation impact study, or also often known as a traffic impact study, and any other documents required by the development administrator to confirm there's compliance with Chapter 17 and any other provision of the municipal code. Right now, this is not specifically called out, but we want it to have it codified, because that's the only way to, without a transportation impact study, there's no way to provide any evidence that a development may not have a negative impact on another property. Next set of, again, text amendments is to table permitted uses in section 17.503. We're eliminating building typologies from the use table. So the table of permitted use is meant for uses, medical office, a retail store, not for building types. So we're removing that just to clarify that, and that's actually going to be clarified more in lot development standards, which we're also making amendments to. We're eliminating combining similar use types. So right now we call out specific use types, so like there's dental office, optometrist office, optician's office, and medical office. Those are all three permitted in the same district, but they're just very specified uses that can all fall under one terminology of medical or doctor's office. Just because of a dentist doesn't make them really different than a medical or a physician's office. So we're eliminating those and combining them, combining like uses into one. The biggest change we're proposing to the table of permitted uses is amending which zoning districts parking garage lot commercials are allowed in. Currently, they're permitted by right in C2, C3, in the Town Center Business or TCB district. The proposed text amendment is to make it a special use in those 3 zoning districts. And the reason for that is we don't necessarily want just a commercial parking lot in our commercial corridor. So if a developer wants to put up a parking garage or a parking lot, we want them to come forward with CDC and the city council to prove why having a parking garage structure or parking lot meets the intent of the zoning district and is actually beneficial to help meet the goals of these zoning districts to be retail corridors of the city. Next batch of proposed amendments are to the accessory structures and uses. Section in 17.602, removing structures and uses which are not accessory. So right now, it calls out uses like gardens, lawn furniture, trees, ornamental lights that people may have in the garage or along their driveway or walkways. Those aren't structures or uses which are meant to be regulated by this chapter or this section. So removing them because you can have gardens wherever you want in your lawn. They're not really having a negative impact on adjacent property and needing to be regulated. We're also removing structures which are regulated by other code sections. So commercial marquees is regulated by the sign code in chapter 13, and attached garages is regulated. It's part of the principal structure, and it's not considered accessory because it's attached to the principal structure. We're also removing the 10 feet building separation requirements between accessory structures. We worked with our building administrator and saw there's no zoning requirement or any building code requirement to have that 10-foot separation. There are specific cases which separation is called out for fire code or fire life safety reasons, and those still apply because of Chapter 12. But in terms of a zoning regulation, there's no need for a 10-foot separation between accessory structures. To continue this, revising swimming pool setbacks to be according to the building code requirements. This is where I was mentioning where there may be specific setback or separation requirements by the building code. And those are still going to be applicable if a homeowner comes forward with a permit for a swimming pool. We're also clarifying that any attached structures follow the principal structure setback requirements, such as a garage or a deck or a patio. They still follow, if they're a body or attached to the principal structure, they follow those setback requirements, and that's a clarification of what's in the code already. We're also clarifying that lot coverage of all accessory structures cannot exceed 10% of the lot area. Again, that's in the code. We're just clarifying the language so it's clear and doesn't cause any confusion. The final batch of proposed text amendments is to lot development standards in section 17.605. We're clarifying the permitted location of main and service entrances, and those also have been, those are 2 definitions that were added to the definition sections. We're clarifying that the difference between the front setback and build 2 line requirements. We've had many homeowners and developers come forward and be confused between the terminology that I was using. So we're clarifying that in the lot development standards, so hopefully there's less confusion by developers. We're also clarifying side yard setback and building separation requirements. You probably saw in the red line version there was many asterisks and side notes that amended what the side yard setback was depending on the situation. We clarified the language and made it clear so for anybody to read it, it's easy to understand. And we're also amending which zoning districts the various building types are permitted to be consistent with the table of permitted uses. In the red line version, you saw how we removed all those building typologies. We made that consistent in this section. So again, we're not changing where they're allowed. We're just making them consistent and putting them in sections that make sense for them to be in. The proposed text amendments are consistent with the UDO and the comprehensive plan. They help make sure that we have good development, and we're also maintaining the characteristics of our residential neighborhoods, also our commercial and industrial areas as well. And because of that, staff is recommending to CDC to recommend approval to City Council of the proposed text amendments. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Does any member of the Community Development Commission have any questions for the staff?
Mhm.
I have a house on one lot, next to that lot, next to that house is another parcel. And I want to put a swimming pool. What are the requirements on that parcel?
So our code already has provision for what's considered a zoning lot. So there may be two assessment lots or two individual lots, but under common ownership. So say you own both lots, it's considered a zoning lot. So you'll be able, still be able to build a pool on that second lot because it's still considered one zoning lot.
But there's no setback in the back, and is there a requirement of 10% of the lot?
So there would
Different
still be
structure?
there'll be still setback requirements from the side and rear lot lines, depending on the location of the swimming pool. So all the regulations require, what yard is permitted in, setbacks, lot coverage, all that would still be applicable, even if you had one zoning lot with 2 parcels or 3 parcels.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Would the petitioner like to be given give a presentation or provide additional information? Good. Okay.
So typically, we'll have petitioners. The staff is the one bringing these proposed text amendments forward. So at this point, there's no members of the public, unless the members have any further questions. Remember, this is the time to ask your questions before we go into deliberation. If there are no further questions, then the public hearing will be closed. So I'll just make a final call for any questions of staff. Okay. So I'll put out a recommended motion to close the public hearing. So I just need a member to say so moved. So moved. Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Who made the motion? I didn't, thank you.
And a roll call, please, Marilyn?
Okay. Mr. Damasco?
Here.
Mr. Peterson? Mr. Shemanek?
And hold on one second. This is a yes or no
Yes.
roll call vote?
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Okay.
Yes.
I stopped calling your name. Okay, we'll start again. Mr. Damasco?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Shemanek?
Yes.
Mr. St. Marie?
Yes.
Mr. Vant?
Yes.
And Mr. Woods?
Yes.
Okay, so now the public hearing portion of the meeting is closed. We're now entering into the public meeting portion. This is the portion of the meeting where there'd be any deliberation on these proposed text amendments. So if there's any comments from any of the members, this would be the time to make them on the proposed text amendments. Okay, so having no comments, staff has provided a recommended motion in its staff memo. It's on page 5 of the memo. And what I'll do is I'll read it as a recommended motion, and then we'll need a member to say so moved. The proposed text amendments are consistent with the comprehensive plan and the Unified Development Ordinance. Based on the findings listed above, staff recommends that the Community Development Commission make the following motion recommending approval of these amendments, and here is the motion. Based on the various proposed text amendments to the sign code in UDO, as summarized in the staff memo, I move that the Community Development Commission adopt the findings of fact included within the staff memo as findings of the Community Development Commission and recommend to City Council approval of case number 2018 CDC 03, and that is the recommended motion.
I second.
So moved by
So moved.
Member Vant. Do we have a second? Okay, and Secretary, roll call, and this is a yes or no vote.
Mr. Damasco?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Shemanek?
Yes.
Mr. St. Marie?
Yes.
Mr. Vant?
Yes.
And Mr. Woods?
Yes.
Okay. And the recommendation will go to City Council as a recommended approval of the text amendments. There was an item, business item, that we skipped by. It is the approval of the meeting minutes from April 18th, 2018. So I would just put out there a recommended motion to approve the meeting minutes from April 18th, 2018.
So moved.
We have, we
We did it, though.
we did. do-
Oh, did we do that? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying
Okay.
attention. Okay, perfect.
Mr. Woods and Mr. Vand.
Correct.
Mo, was that the 16th or the 18th for the last meeting?
Says the 16th. Check, that's a Monday.
16th, yes, I
Okay.
apologize.
But just let, Marilyn, just let the record reflect that it's a motion for approval of the April 16th,
16, yes.
2018 meeting minutes.
I will.
Okay. All right. Mo, usually I think you have just sort of a status update report.
Yeah.
Do you have one tonight?
So, I just want to let the CDC know that the next CDC meeting, will be, we're coming forward with the comprehensive plan update. So we would like all the commissioners to be present for that one. Since it is a big project, we would like everybody's input on that. What's that?
When?
The next CDC meeting, the June CDC, which I believe is June 18th.
June?
Yeah, other than that, that's it.
Okay. All right.
Need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, do a roll call, or we just say,
We do all in favor on
all
this?
in favor?
Aye.
It's done.
All right.
Good job.
Thank you.
I gotta bring him to my other meetings.